May from EasySAM. May has over 11 years of experience in SAM and SaaS, and so she's just going to share with us today who she is and what EasySAM can do to help you better your SaaS strategy. If you would like to leave any questions or comments, please use the Q&A section on the right-hand side of the screen. And this is a Coffee Talk TBSC, so you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube using the hashtag Coffee Talk TBSC just to keep the conversation going. This session is recorded, so feel free to check us out on YouTube afterwards, where the session will be posted later on. Okay, go ahead, May. I'll go ahead and let you share your screen now.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Madison. So yeah, as she's already alluded to, guys, I am one of the directors here at EasySAM. We're an independent SAM consultancy, which means that we work sort of independent from tools and the sale of software, which means ideally that we have customers' best interests at heart. And we work very closely with TBSC on sort of a SaaS level because of the technology that they have produced and the great company that they are to work with. Let's move into the presentation. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. It's just sort of a short and sweet presentation today, obviously to give you guys some pointers, but also to start some conversation. So like Madison said, if you have any questions or would like to chat any more about any of the topics, please just let us know. So the first slide shows you a little bit about what EasySAM do. So we pretty much can do anything in terms of helping your organization, anything from helping you interpret your Microsoft licensing statements or any other license entitlement from a vendor, right the way to sort of like training, helping you select tools, but also to sort of do the whole full-blown managed service thing where we kind of project manage your software assets for you. And you can see on the slide the little bolded bit in the middle is where we obviously partner with TBSC in terms of their Smarter 365 technology, where we wrap our services around it, and we've obviously relabeled it Smarter 365. Obviously they do multiple different SaaS platforms in this offering, but I think we're focusing quite a lot today on Microsoft. Right, so without further ado, let's get into the conversation topics today. And obviously you will have seen from the heading, 5 ways you might be catching yourself out with SaaS. This is around sort of some of the hurdles that you might be facing when it comes to SaaS or the likes. Making sure you're optimizing, but also making sure that you're not producing risk for the business. So one of the first topics there is Azure. So Azure is one of those environments that is still quite new and a little bit of a fad a few years ago. And what we found is that some of the customers performed simple lifts and shifts from their current environment. And later down the line, they sort of reevaluated it and thought, you know what, it isn't really a lift and shift. The Microsoft infrastructure is just like so much better than what we had in place that we really should have done a little bit more homework around it. So you do find customers have these Azure estates that were inherited that are far more scaled too greatly for what they actually need. Another thing is that, like any virtual machine in any environment, they're really easy to get out of control. So it's easy to provision resources, and therefore it's easy to end up with quite an expensive mess going on there. So that's Azure, and obviously we do a lot of work around reviewing these environments and making sure that you're not overspending, making sure things that don't need to be on all the time, don't need to, you know, get turned off or scheduled and things like that. But we also have a look at what you have on premise. And this makes a difference to things like Azure, mainly because of the hybrid use rights. So with Windows Server Data Center, lots of people don't know this, but you actually get hybrid use rights, allowing you to reuse your licenses on premise as well as in the cloud. So when you are building or provisioning a VM, you can select to bring your own licenses to the party, and this can represent quite a big cost saving for the company, and a lot of people don't know about it. So they are paying in duplicate when they shouldn't. Inactive accounts is another big one, and this sort of expands outside of Microsoft. Any subscription-based platform, we've seen in the past, even with the likes of SAP and things like that, where user subscriptions or user accounts get ill-managed, or they, they fall out of use without the correct party's knowledge, and that allows for potentially years worth of spend on accounts where people have left years ago. So this is something that actually Smart 365 technology does really well. So you just plug it into your tenant, you set the parameters. So with inactive accounts, you want to look around 60 to 90-day inactivity. That sort of comes in line with the BAU in terms of license reassignment. And what it does then is flags to you a number of accounts that you can either reach then out to the head of department or perhaps directly to the users to try and reharvest some of those licenses and keep the cost down. Not only does it do that, but it also highlights to you maybe subscription levels that need to be altered. So point number 4 on the screen is talking about subscription choices. So when you sit down with the salesperson from the software vendor, it's really easy to fall into the trap of, getting drawn in by all the bells and whistles, and you're thinking, yes, we'd really like that. Oh yeah, that sounds really great. But in hindsight, people obviously look in retrospect and see that they aren't using all those bells and whistles. They could have probably gone with a slightly less expensive subscription. And the great thing about subscriptions is that you have time to change. You're not stuck in that forever, and you have the option to obviously downscale or change your subscriptions at the end of your term or agreement. And last but not least, talking about SaaS and getting the best for your buck and making sure that everything is running smoothly and reducing all the things you wanted to. Investing in your investments is also required. So you've purchased this really great subscription, and you've rolled it out, and you leave it. And what we sort of try and encourage, and we obviously use the Smart 365 tool for this as well, is encourage adoption. So we'll be able to see if people are using the technology, what functions or features of the technology they're using, so that we can make recommendations in terms of driving adoption and identifying where maybe training is needed. So I think those are the top 5. That I come across. Obviously, Azure in terms of monetary financial risk is a lot larger potentially, depending on the scale. But the rest also, they all add up to potentially sizable returns. I think Gartner, in one of their statements a couple of years ago, said that they expect maybe savings on a SaaS level when introducing a SAM program to be more than 35%. So some considerable return on your investment here for just a small segment of your estate. Right, so that sort of sums up the key points and tips I wanted to cover today. So I guess the question is, Madison, do we have any questions?
Yes, we did have a question come in. Not sure why I'm echoing, sorry about that. So I do see a question. It says, do you focus only on Microsoft? And a continuation of that is, do you work with a variety of businesses? We are in finance.
Yes. So at the moment, the most popular, I think, in medicine, you'll second this, is probably 365. But I think TBSC do another 7. I think it's up to 7. So they do things like Dropbox. they'll do Adobe Creative Cloud. Off the top of my head, I'm battling to think of others. Obviously, they do the Azure platform. That's something that's currently under development and we're constantly improving on. Are there any that I'm missing here, Madison?
DocuSign, Salesforce. I know we have a list of stuff that we're going to be testing in the future as well. So I would say if you have a specific application, whether that's a financial application, etc., let us know and we can see if we can work with it in the future. That's the great thing about this product is because it's hosted in the cloud. It's really easy for us to, of course, make the modifications needed to access the information and then provide you the data that you need to make the best decisions for your business moving forward.
And as a relatively young product, TBSC are always very super keen to let you be involved in building the product. So in terms of roadmap and SLAs and things like that, that you maybe get a bit frustrated with bigger companies and bigger products, the turnaround sort of tailoring things for your SaaS requirements is quite good, I find, with TBSC.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. We're really into innovation, and especially with the pandemic, we've definitely noticed an increase of business needs. So we've been able to adapt our product a lot since its original launch last year. We do have another question. It says, we're a smaller business and have our employees wear many hats. This seems like it would help with our IT department, but what exactly is the review process like? Is it something we do with you, or do we read the data and info on our own?
Okay, so that's quite easy. It can be either or. So to set up the tool, Smarter 365 is relatively, quick and easy. I think it takes around 30 minutes with a consultant online, just setting everything up. We pull the data in, we set the parameters. And then if you want to keep the tool and have a look at the data yourself, that's absolutely fine. If you'd like to employ somebody's time from a company like EasySAM's, then that's totally doable. And then what we would do is really work with you to interpret the data, sort of plan next steps, add a little bit of project management in there to ensure that the actions are followed through, because I think that's the biggest thing. I think when it comes to asset management, is sometimes it's easy to tell what's wrong, but it's a little harder to get the investment from the business to see everything through to the end and see the fixes through and make sure that you don't repeat some of those problems again, those mistakes.
I would agree with all of that. And what I really like about Simplicity 365 is that you can not only backtrack and see everything from the past 180 days, but you can start benchmarking where you're at now and then seeing where you improve throughout, the year that you have it or so. And we've definitely noticed a huge increase in usage and utilization, which is really beneficial. Microsoft does want us to use the product, and so they recommend being at least 95% efficient, and many businesses aren't necessarily at that benchmark yet. We found businesses at maybe 50%, and that could be for a variety of different reasons. So looking over this data might be confusing to you. So that's why we also have consultations with us as well, so we can walk you through exactly where there might be needs, whether that's training needs or maybe changing the license, etc., to really improve your utilization. I don't see any other questions coming in at this time. Usually the coffee talks are about 10-15 minutes long, so we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. May, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really useful. And if anybody needs to rewatch this video at a later date, feel free. It will be on our YouTube channel later. And if you ever need to get in contact with us, just email us info@businesssoftwarecenter.com. All right, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.